Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we will be checking out the Chinese Chengdu J-10A. It's currently the only special vehicle available for purchase with coins, and it costs 43,000 if you don't own any Tier 7 aircraft or 20,000 if you already own a Tier 7 aircraft.
The first clip of this video will include a 1v2 against an F-15 and F-16. If played correctly, it can beat both in a one-circle turn.
But the F-16 can easily drag me into prolonged dogfight, which you should completely avoid in this aircraft. So, I launch a PL-11 at an F-15, but he realizes my missile will hit first, so he enters a notch, making it miss. The AIM-7 MH from the F-16 almost touches me, and now I have to go defensive. Both missed their shots, and now they're in front of me, not because my turn rate is better, but because I was already so much slower than them, that they simply overshot me. The F-15 realizes that a bit too late and gives me an opportunity to fire my PL-5C. He doesn't bother flaring it, and in the meantime the F-16 landed a spot on my CX. If I can dodge his shot here, I can easily reverse him once again and hopefully land a lucky shot. But the position of this gun makes it much harder to aim, and you will have to learn how to lead it properly. As expected, the F-16 overshoots, and now all I have to do is pitch my nose up and land the finishing shot. But the ground does the job for me and takes my life in the process. In this situation, I've got an F-15 right in front of me. I'll wait a bit to get closer to him before firing my PL-11. He doesn't really seem to care about it much, so I get an easy kill. Now I've got to deal with an F-16 that's much closer. I can still get a kill with the PL-11 here, but he notches it last second. And now I've parked myself on his 6. He's going to have a very hard time trying to reverse me, because I bleed a lot more speed than him. What he could do is drag me into a sustained turn fight, but there's simply way too many of my teammates here to allow him to do that. A quick look at his performance stats reveals that it is above average for this tier, having a good thrust-weight ratio, stall speed, turn rate and roll rate. This allows you to be an excellent dogfighter that can beat many aircraft in this tier. There are a couple downsides however, like the extremely poor energy retention and high optimal speed. This doesn't allow you to maintain your optimal speed at all, meaning you're going to want to stick to one-circle turns and avoid prolonged dogfights, as you'll be going 500 km per hour or less very quickly. Energy-intensive maneuvers like going vertical are to be avoided, as they can put you in a disadvantageous position, especially if there's multiple enemies around you, which is something that will happen many times. It also accelerates decently quickly and is pretty fast, so you can run away from some opponents. The offensive armament consists of one gun and 5 different missiles. The gun is the Type 23 23mm cannon. It's essentially the same thing as the Soviet GSH-23L. It has an extremely good fire rate of over 3000 when maxed. You don't get a lot of ammo, only 220 rounds when maxed, so trigger patience is needed if you want to efficiently use this gun. It's also placed in a suboptimal position, under your air intake, so you need to offset your crossbar while aiming, which will take some time to get used to. I'll cover the missiles in more detail later in the video. For now, let's focus on the countermeasures. Get a total of 58, 18 flares and 40 chaff. This is a relatively low amount. While the chaff count is okay, the flare count is the smallest in this tier, so utilizing the 5 key and carefully using the countermeasures is necessary. The PL-5C is an all-aspect infrared heat-seeking missile and is the only stock one of that type. This is a bit of an interesting missile. It has a decent max G-pull and acceleration, having a short but powerful booster. You're only able to carry 2, but even if it could carry more, I wouldn't recommend you do that, as it has some noticeable weaknesses that make it subpar compared to other iron missiles of this tier. The most noticeable weakness is its lack of RCCM and radar slaving. Luckily, you do get an HMD, so all you have to do is look at the target to acquire an infrared lock. That might also be an issue, as the range of this missile is pretty short. I wouldn't recommend rear aspect launches for more than 2 km. It can also be flared relatively easily. Only time that might not be true is in close range rear aspect shots where the enemy doesn't cut the afterburner. The PL-11 is this plane's only stock semi-active homing missile. For a stock one, it's actually very good, having an above average max G-pull and decent booster, which while short, is very powerful, allowing this missile to be efficiently used in close range shots. It is a bit heavy, but since you can only carry 4, I wouldn't suggest taking less for better performance. unless you're in a small lobby and want to dogfight the enemy. You should stick to close range head-on shots between 2 and 6 kilometers. Anything more than that gives the enemy plenty of time to notch or go behind terrain to dodge your missile. Firing it from closer than 2 kilometers can sometimes get you a kill, but to maximize the chances of it hitting, stick to the before mentioned limits. For this clip I've switched to a better loadout, consisting of PL8s and PL11As. I notice a Phantom FG1 in front of me that's close to a notching position. I hesitate a bit to fire this missile, but in the end decide to do it. He keeps flying in the same direction, and if you paid close attention, I defeated an AIM-54 by simply notching its radar. But just to be safe, you should drop 1 or 2 checks while notching it to increase the chances of it missing. This also applies to aircraft radars in this tier. If someone fires a radar missile at you from 15 kilometers, you can notch it without dropping chaff. It's just one way to conserve your already limited countermeasures. I was easily able to deal with the F-14 and soon spotted a high-flying Mirage. He could have launched a semi-active radar homing missile at me, and because of his energy advantage, his would hit first. However, some people decide to only take the Magic 2s, which is completely understandable, but the Super 530Ds are very lethal in this tier, so you need to be careful of them, especially in Sark jousts. In the meantime, his teammate in an F-14 comes to help him, which forces me to allow the Mirage on my 6. I was forced to pre-flare as a Magic 2 at these ranges is very hard to flare. I launched a PL8 to hopefully distract the F-14A for a bit while I was dealing with the Mirage. Of course, he was easily able to flare it, but luckily he misses his shot, so my plan somewhat worked. The Mirage overshoots, but my absolutely terrible aim made me miss a very easy shot. One of my teammates distracted him for enough time to allow me to launch one of my PL8s, which ends up hitting. Now I'd like to show you an actual dogfight I had with an SC-27. We start off with a merge where he fires an R-27R from way too close. But before I can fully focus on him, I'll have to quickly deal with the F-14A. Now that he's gone, I'll pitch down to gain some energy and fully focus on the SC-27. Use the time I spent on the F-14A to get his nose around first. Then I perform the worst PL8 launch ever recorded and we merge once again. I notice he'll turn around first, so I slightly pitch up to deny him the shot. For whatever reason, I reversed my turn. I probably thought he was faster than me, so he would overshoot, but that wasn't the case. Got his afterburner, but that was not enough, as he ends up in front of me. This shows just how much speed the J-10A really bleeds. My nose does the funny and makes me miss this shot, but here he makes a mistake by trying to start a 2-circle turn. I immediately get on his 6, and I will struggle quite a lot to get a shot in here, but in the end a couple rounds will connect and destroy his wing. The PL8 is an all-aspect infrared heat-seeking missile that can be purchased for 80 upgrade points. It's a nice upgrade from the PL5C, having a higher max G-pull, better flare resistance, radar slaving, smaller field of view, and an arguably better booster. Despite all these improvements, it lacks a bit in the range, and in some aspects it's still easily flared. That's why firing it in head-ons is not recommended at all, as one flare is enough to distract the missile. Long-range shots are only recommended if the enemy is unaware of their surroundings and if you're faster and higher than them. You'll have better chances of getting a kill in close-range rear aspect shots where the enemy doesn't cut their afterburner. Just make sure they aren't pre-flaring. High off-bore shots can give you kills, but the cannon's warm-up delay is noticeable, which makes it fly straight for a bit of time after being launched. You can negate that by leading the missile in the direction the enemy is flying in. The PL11A is the second semi-active radar homing missile you can purchase for 150 upgrade points. It has a longer booster and slightly larger targeting cone, while being 8 kg heavier. Generally speaking, it can be used the same. One thing I would like to mention is the INS guidance time of 9 seconds, which allows you to relock a target if they enter the notch or went behind terrain for a short amount of time. This can be useful in long-range shots where, for instance, the enemy notches for 5 seconds and then leaves the notch, while your missile is still traveling towards him. This won't be used that much in a regular match, but it is a useful thing to have in mind. The PL8B is an all-aspect infrared heat-seeking missile with RCCM and is the best infrared missile available for the J-10A. It can be purchased for 220 upgrade points, but it's 100% worth getting. It has very similar performance to the PL8 with the same limitations, but the increased gimbal and flare resistance make it more versatile. Head-on launches are still not recommended. Stick to rear and side aspect shots and launch at enemies that aren't pre-flaring or are unaware of your presence. If the enemy is pre-flaring, you should hold on to your PL8B, as you can only carry 2 and you wouldn't want to waste one when you could have easily held on to it. And now we'll finally take a look at some clips with the best loadout, consisting of 2 PL-8Bs and 4 PL-11As. I start off by nearly flying into the ground trying to multipath the enemy's radar missile, and then I perform a bit of a risky PL-8B launch. At these ranges it can be easily cleared, but if the enemy doesn't do that, the missile has a high chance of hitting. I notice 3 enemies around me, so I just start flying as low as possible. Turning into a notch wastes a lot of energy, and multipathing doesn't require any chaff. So that's yet another way of saving your countermeasures. I successfully multipath his AIM-7 and he probably wasn't expecting that judging from his reaction. I pitch up and launch my PL-8B. There's basically nothing he could have done about it here. If you're ever in a situation where there's a lot of enemies around you, the PL-8B can be extremely useful. In this situation there's multiple enemies around me, so try my best to destroy each one. Starting with this J-10A that isn't pre-flaring and doesn't seem to acknowledge my existence. He was no match for it, and now I have to deal with the F-16 on my 6. He launches an AIM-9M that was surprisingly easy to flare, and misses his shot, which makes him overshoot. He takes a predictable flight path, which allows me to turn in front of him and fire my PL-8B. He wasn't pre-flaring, so there was a high chance it would hit. Now I quickly go over the radar and RWR present on this aircraft. The radar is the KLJ-3 and it's one of the best in this tier. It has a decent Doppler filter, good detection range and an amazing search cone, which almost allows you to notch and guide your missiles at the same time. This gives you a major advantage in Sorg jousts and can sometimes confuse the enemy who thinks you're notching and guiding your missiles at the same time. The RWR is also one of the best in this tier, allowing you to easily notch enemy radar missiles. It also tells the name of the threat, so you can easily recognize which aircraft is scanning or locking you. Finally, let's place this aircraft on this tier list. I'll place it into S tier. It has very good avionics, an above average radar, good RWR and an HMD. The missiles are also pretty good, and if not taken seriously, they can be very hard to dodge for the enemy. The performance is also quite good. Where it lacks in the energy retention, the monster return performance is above average. One real downside is the flare count, which will be a problem for those who spam countermeasures and don't use the 5 key.